A 100,000-ton steel Leviathan, worth $13.3 billion, is fighting a relentless war against the crushing physics of the ocean. This 11-story, classified labyrinth hides engineering secrets that 99% of the world will never see. How does this massive mechanical beast maintain absolute operational readiness while isolated in the most unforgiving environments on Earth? Let's bypass the restricted bulkheads and descend into the hidden engineering of the USS Gerald R. Ford. Right now, a 100,000-ton block of HY, 100 steel tiers through the Pacific at exactly 30 knots. That is 15.4 meters per second of kinetic velocity, displacing 3.5 million cubic feet of salt water. This is the USS Gerald R. Ford CVN-78. It is a $13.3 billion military asset, navigating an unforgiving mathematical reality. This hull is not a static fortress, but a highly stressed mechanical organism compressing thousands of tons of operational risk. Through the economic lens of warfare, it faces a terrifying cost-benefit ratio when navigating maritime choke points littered with $1,500 acoustic naval mines. That asymmetrical math forces every single subsystem to operate at the razor's edge of material endurance. Let's step inside Zone 1, the hangar bay, a steel cavern measuring 685 feet long, 110 feet wide, and exactly 25 feet high. This is not an empty warehouse, but a strict geometric equation with absolutely zero margin for error. The logistical mandate is brutal: pack a rotating fraction of the air wing, including $100 million F-35C Lightning IIs, into a continuously pitching environment. The ship rolls up to 15 degrees in heavy swells, sending harmonic vibrations through every metallic rib. To maximize cubic volume, engineers calculate a precise wing folding matrix where an F-35C's wingspan collapses from 43.0 feet down to 29.5 feet. Mechanics maneuver 15-ton fuselages with tow tractors, leaving exactly 6 inches of clearance between fragile radar domes and solid steel bulkheads. Beneath the non-skid deck lies a complex piping network, pumping over 3 million gallons of JP5 aviation fuel. Pressurized at 150 pounds per square inch, this volatile liquid possesses a flash point of exactly 140 degrees Fahrenheit, running like pressurized veins waiting to rupture. The ambient thermal output of the ship cooks the very boundaries of structural safety. The ultimate mechanical bottleneck lies at the 3-deck edge aircraft elevators, each spanning 4,000 square feet of aluminum alloy. Their dynamic lift capacity is 120,000 pounds, moving 60 tons of mass vertically at 150 feet per minute. They operate relentlessly, even when Sea State 6 slams the hull with 20-foot kinetic waves and multi-axis G-forces fight the hydraulic actuators. If a single primary directional valve loses its 3,000 psi seal, the elevator is instantly classified as broken. The sortie generation rate of the entire air wing drops by 33% in mere milliseconds. There is absolutely no mathematical workaround, proving that physics offers zero forgiveness in a live combat theater. Moving aft to the fantail, the laws of thermodynamics are pushed to the breaking limit in the designated open-air test cell. An F414 turbofan engine in full afterburner blast, 22,000 pounds of thrust with an exhaust velocity exceeding Mach 1, radiating 3,000 degrees Fahrenheit of thermal energy. The ship's skeleton absorbs continuous low-frequency vibrations while fighting extreme shear forces generated by its own payload. If you're the chief naval architect, how do you mathematically solve this variable? Do you add mass to reinforce the aft frames against 130 decibel acoustic vibration? Or expand the hangar geometry to increase kinetic firepower? Drop your exact engineering choice in the comments below. If you demand the unfiltered reality of military logistics and high-fidelity physics, hit the like button and subscribe right now. We refuse to sugarcoat the engineering limitations. Your engagement is the raw data we need to continue deconstructing the most expensive machines on Earth. The hangar bay is merely a static parking matrix. The mechanism that physically accelerates these 30-ton weapons from 0 to 160 miles per hour in exactly 2.01 seconds hides directly beneath the flight deck. It is an electromagnetic accelerator where a 50 millisecond voltage spike is enough to shatter an airframe. Are you ready to descend? Beneath the flight deck's non-skid surface lies the Electromagnetic Aircraft Launch System, universally known in naval architecture as EMALS. This architecture completely replaces the brutal legacy steam-powered catapults of the Nimitz class with a 300-foot linear induction motor. It utilizes perfectly timed alternating magnetic fields to accelerate a fully loaded 70,000-pound F-35C, lightning 2 to 160 miles per hour in just 2.01 seconds. It is a masterpiece of modern physics, theoretically capable of sustaining a kinetic launch rate of one strike fighter every 45 seconds. But do not blindly worship the defense contractor brochure specifications. The reality of weaponizing electromagnetism at this scale is a nightmare of extreme physical variables. The massive energy discharge pulling up to 121 megajoules per launch from 4 massive kinetic flywheels creates catastrophic electromagnetic interference, EMI. During initial stress testing, this invisible high-frequency radiation spiked uncontrollably, scrambling adjacent digital subsystems and inducing severe thermal overloads within the energy storage cycle converters. The true vulnerability of EMALS is not mechanical. It is algorithmic, unlike pressurized steam, which reliably follows the unchangeable laws of fluid dynamics. EMALS is governed by millions of lines of complex software code, a microsecond delay in the sensor feedback loop, or a minor logic fault in the power conditioning architecture instantly triggers an automatic system abort when the code freezes during a high-intensity combat sortie. The kinetic striking power of the entire $13 billion carrier group drops to absolute zero. If the electromagnetic launch system is the muscle, the true destructive payload is buried deep within the ship's bowels. Descend 11 levels below the waterline, beneath multiple decks of reinforced HY-100 steel, to reach the heavily restricted weapons magazines. This is a 100% armored, climate-controlled, and hermetically sealed vault. It is a strictly pressurized, blast-proof environment engineered to stabilize thousands of tons of high-yield explosives floating inside a dynamic combat zone. Inside these steel catacombs sleep the deadliest kinetic assets in the United States arsenal. Rows of 2,000-pound GBU-31 JDAMS Joint Direct Attack munitions filled with PBXN-109 explosive compound, alongside heat-seeking AIM-9X Sidewinder missiles, are locked into heavy shock-absorbing blast cradles. The ambient temperature and humidity levels must remain mathematically perfect to prevent the chemical degradation of the solid rocket propellants. A localized thermal spike down here does not just cause an isolated fire. It triggers a chain reaction that vaporizes the entire vessel. To move these munitions from the ocean floor to the flight deck, the Navy integrated 11 Advanced Weapons Elevators, AWE. Unlike legacy systems that relied on heavy steel cables and mechanical hydraulic winches, the AWE utilizes permanent magnetic synchronous motors. It was designed to move 24,000 pounds of ordnance vertically at 150 feet per minute, theoretically increasing sortie generation rates by an astonishing 30%. But the grandeur of this design met a brutal reality check against the laws of oceanic physics. When a 333-meter steel hull navigates through Sea State 6, it physically bends, twists, and deforms under thousands of tons of hydrostatic pressure. This microscopic hull flexion, sometimes measuring just a few millimeters through the highly sensitive magnetic guide, rails of the elevators completely out of alignment. Because the engineering tolerances between the magnetic stator and armature were too tight, the levitation failed. The result, for years, all 11 elevators were clinically dead on arrival. This engineering catastrophe proved a harsh military truth. The ocean does not care about your advanced schematics. The AWE system required extensive software patches, physical rail realignment, and massive structural stiffening just to achieve basic functionality. The sheer arrogance of assuming a perfect micromillimeter magnetic field could survive the brutal, twisting shear forces of the North Atlantic cost the taxpayer years of delays and heavily compromised the ship's offensive capability. Between a rudimentary steam-powered mechanical system that is heavy but virtually indestructible, and a hyper-advanced electromagnetic system that can be completely paralyzed by a software glitch. Where do you place your trust if you are the fleet commander under heavy enemy fire? Which system do you bet the survival of your carrier group on? Leave your strategic assessment in the comments below.
Those massive magnetic elevators and electromagnetic catapults consume an electrical wattage equivalent to a small metropolitan city. To feed that insatiable, fluctuating grid, this 100,000-ton Leviathan hides an infinite, yet terrifyingly unstable power source in its deepest, most heavily guarded compartment. A system where a cooling failure is not just an error, but an extinction-level event. What exactly is boiling behind those thick lead walls? Deep inside the lowest levels of the hull, encased in heavily restricted blast bulkheads, sit the twin Bechtel A-1B nuclear reactors. This is the ultimate forbidden zone, monitored by armed sentries, biometric locks, and strict dosimeter tracking. Together, these two atomic cores generate an astonishing 600 megawatts of electrical power, a massive 250% increase over the legacy A-4W reactors of the Nimitz class. That is enough localized thermal and electrical energy to power a metropolitan city of 400,000 people. The uranium, 235 fuel inside, is enriched to highly classified weapons-grade levels, theoretically allowing this warship to operate continuously at flank speed for 25 years without a single refueling stop. But raw nuclear fission is inherently suicidal if left geometrically unchecked. The atomic core operates at extreme temperatures, pressurized to exactly 2,000 pounds per square inch to prevent the primary coolant water from instantly flashing into radioactive steam. This superheated, highly volatile liquid is pumped rapidly through a closed primary loop, directly into a massive steam generator. Through pure conductive heat, transfer across thousands of microscopic Inconel 690 alloy tubes, it boils a secondary, completely non-radioactive water loop. This secondary high-pressure steam is what actually spins the massive turbine generators at thousands of revolutions per minute to feed the ship's insatiable electrical grid. The ionizing radiation emitted by the splitting atoms is lethal to human tissue in mere milliseconds. To protect the biological payload, engineers constructed a multi-dimensional biological shield of staggering density. The reactor vessel itself is wrapped in thick layers of high-density lead, specifically formulated polyethylene, and a heavily borated water shield designed to instantly absorb stray thermal neutrons. Surrounding all of this is an impenetrable vault of heavy HY-80 steel armor. It is a multi-layered prison built to keep the deadliest energy source known to physics perfectly contained amid the violent kinetic chaos of modern combat.
If the reactors are the thermodynamic heart, the hull is the structural ribcage. Naval defense architecture does not view the USS Gerald R. Ford as a single solid block of metal floating on the surface. Instead, it is an engineered maze consisting of over 3,000 individual, hermetically sealable, watertight compartments. The ultimate defensive masterpiece is the double bottom structure, running the entire 333-meter length of the keel. The lower hull features two distinct layers of heavy steel plating, separated by a calculated void space measuring several feet deep.
This specific structural geometry is not designed to stop airborne missiles or radar-guided bombs. It is explicitly engineered to survive a catastrophic kinetic torpedo strike. Modern heavyweight torpedoes, like the 533mm wake-homing variants, do not physically impact the ship's armor. They detonate their 600-pound high-explosive warheads directly beneath the keel. The explosion instantly vaporizes the seawater, creating a super-pressurized, oscillating gas bubble. This phenomenon violently lifts the 100,000-ton carrier upward, and then the bubble rapidly collapses, creating a massive hydrostatic void that attempts to snap the ship's structural spine entirely in half. This is exactly where the double bottom doctrine saves the entire carrier group from annihilation. The outer hull layer is mathematically designed to intentionally shatter and deform, acting as a massive sacrificial crumple zone. The explosive acoustic shockwave travels into the empty void spaces, expanding harmlessly and rapidly losing its kinetic velocity before it can penetrate the inner pressure hull. These engineered liquid and air voids absorb the lethal overpressure, saving the primary structural keel from experiencing a catastrophic ship-sinking fracture. If the outer armor fails and high-pressure salt water breaches the lower decks, the ship executes its final, desperate survival protocol, Condition Zebra. Within seconds, automated pneumatic actuators and damage control teams slam shut thousands of heavy mechanical hatches, armored doors, and cross-connect valves across all 11 decks. The singular, vulnerable, 100,000-ton Leviathan is instantly transformed into thousands of sealed, independent steel buoys. By isolating the catastrophic flooding to microzones, this brutal damage control doctrine literally rewrites the laws of physics, completely neutralizing Archimedes' principle of buoyancy failure. The thickest, most vital armor on this vessel does not face the sky to protect against supersonic threats. It faces the crushing abyss of the ocean. The lower hull is forged from specialized high-yield HY, 100 naval steel, designed to flex without tearing under extreme hydrostatic loads. As a student of military engineering, do you know exactly how many pounds per square inch of yield strength this specific metallurgical compound can withstand before it structurally deforms? Drop your exact calculation in the comments below. It is immortal against physical attacks, but a giant machine cannot fight itself without a brain. Where are all the data streams, radars, and firing orders processed in this 100,000-ton steel block? The Combat Direction Center processes millions of tactical data points per second, but silicon chips do not make the final kill decision. Humans do. Beneath the flight deck, coexisting alongside pressurized JP-5 fuel lines and heavily shielded nuclear reactors, lies a highly compressed subterranean city. The Navy clinically refers to this human element as the biological payload. These are 5,000 highly trained personnel living inside a sealed, heavily armored steel tube, entirely devoid of natural sunlight. It is an environment defined by constant artificial illumination, recycled oxygen, and the omnipresent metallic scent of ozone and aviation fuel.
This is not a rudimentary field infirmary. Deep within the hull, the USS Gerald R. Ford houses a fully operational Level 2 medical treatment facility. It features a 3-bed intensive care unit, ICU, a state-of-the-art surgical suite, a fully stocked pharmacy, an independent blood bank, and a specialized dental clinic. 11 commissioned medical officers and 30 highly trained hospital corpsmen operate on a brutal 24/7 rotational cycle. They are the final desperate line of defense against the mechanical violence of the ship itself.
Imagine the sheer biomechanical terror of performing open surgery at sea. A flight deck mechanic suffers a catastrophic arterial rupture from a snapped steel arresting cable. Blood pressure crashes instantaneously. The medical team has exactly 4 minutes before irreversible brain death occurs. The surgeons must execute a complex vascular anastomosis, stitching a severed femoral artery back together with microscopic synthetic thread. But the operating table is pitching 15 degrees in sea state 6. They literally time their microscopic scalpel incisions to the exact rhythmic frequency of the ocean swells. Forced to execute world-class trauma medicine while the ceiling above them vibrates violently from 70,000-pound aircraft slamming onto the deck just a few levels above. To combat the psychological erosion of a sunless, 130-decibel environment, the Navy built a surreal oasis directly above the nuclear reactors. This is the USO Entertainment Center. High-definition gaming consoles, leather recliners, and movie screens sit just meters away from armored bulkheads protecting 2,000-pound high explosives. It is a calculated psychological buffer. Down the hall operates the ship's dental clinic. Imagine the biomechanical stress of a naval dentist operating a high-speed drill at 400,000 revolutions per minute inside a sailor's mouth while the deck unpredictably rolls in heavy oceanic swells. Cutting through the relentless mechanical vibration of the hull is the ship's own private radio and television station, broadcasting strictly internally through miles of copper wiring. It acts as the artificial heartbeat of the crew. It provides a curated, localized feed of music, news, and command broadcasts designed to keep 5,000 isolated humans mentally tethered to a world they will not physically touch for up to 270 days.
alongside the heavily soundproof satellite communication booths, where sailors are granted strictly rationed 15-minute windows to call home. These facilities are the only fragile threads keeping the most hardened warfighters sane. If you were locked inside a vibrating, highly pressurized steel box for 6 months without ever seeing the sun, what is the single object, memory, or daily habit that would keep you from losing your mind? Give me your raw, honest answer in the comments below.
The ultimate legacy of this Leviathan is not its electromagnetic catapults or its infinite nuclear heart. On July 11th, 2013, a heavily reinforced metal compartment was permanently welded into the ship's superstructure, directly beneath the command island. Inside rests a piece of sandstone from the White House, challenge coins, and the aviator wings of the ship's first commanding officer. It is a permanently sealed time capsule. But that steel box is merely a physical proxy. What is truly sealed inside this 100,000-ton warship is the youth, the sweat, the blood, and the irreplaceable time of the tens of thousands of sailors who will walk its narrow passageways. Engineered for a strict 50-year service life, the Ford will not be decommissioned until the year 2067, long after the original crew has retired. This ship will continue to consume the prime years of generations of Americans who are not yet born. The AN/SPY Ford dual-band radar arrays can track hypersonic targets from hundreds of miles away. The twin nuclear cores can run for half a century without stopping. But the greatest, most lethal war machine ever engineered by human hands is utterly useless without the heartbeat inside it. The ultimate weapon is not the ship. It is the unbreakable will of the 5,000 sailors who breathe life into cold steel. If this deep dive completely changed how you view naval engineering in the quiet, brutal sacrifices made below the waterline, honor that reality by hitting the like button and subscribing right now. We don't just talk about the superficial specs of these weapons. We dissect the true human and physical cost of operating them. Your support is the intelligence feed we need to keep decoding these incredible machines. We will see you in the next analysis.